Well, Russell Moore stood out in the evangelical circles for criticizing Trump. He was also critical of the Southern Baptist Convention's handling of sexual abuse and white nationalism, and this resulted in his departure. He now heads Christianity Today magazine. More recently, addressed a crisis in American Christianity. He thinks society's divisions have infiltrated the church. In reality, it's the other way around. Moore glosses over the role of evangelical leaders. They have fanned the flames in the name of their own self interest for decades. He was a top church official and he did condemn them. He says Christianity's in Crisis, NPR.org, by Scott Detrow, Gabriel Sanchez, and Sarah Handel in August 2023. And also, another article is Evangelicals are now rejecting liberal teachings of Jesus in Newsweek by Ayla Slisko, August 9th, 2023. Now, I was wondering, Cynthia, what did you have on this subject?
Well, we covered Russell Moore a few times on the nonprofits. I think the first time that we covered Russell Moore is when him and Beth Moore departed the SBC. No relation, back in April of 2021. But it's for the same reasons that you mentioned previously in the article, being, I believe that Beth specifically left because of the misogyny that was rampant in the church, and also she was a outspoken critic of Trump as well. Now, to be fair, when Moore described the conversations he was having with the other ministers on how their congregants who are MAGA supporters and calling Jesus' sermons, the Sermon on the Mount one, the turning of the cheek, weak. These are anecdotes, okay? There was no survey monkey that was like conducted in order for us to get like an actual approximation of the percentage of MAGA people who were saying that Jesus is weak or what have you. But I do have to say that there seems to be a proclivity of those who are MAGA Christian nationalists to be a bit more reactive in action to making sure the country that is bending to the MAGA will. And if this was not the case, we would not have had January 6th. Can I get an amen from all the atheists on the
Amen.
panel?
Amen.
But thank you, thank you. And I'm so
Mm-hmm.
glad that you all said that and we did not rehearse that. But I am curious to know what you all have to say. And I'm coming to you first, Phil, because you are on the outside looking in
Mm-hmm.
on the American politic. What say you?
Oh yeah. Well, I this is makes me laugh in the sense that this person is being hypocritical. On one hand, yes, is against. Trump is not any good at all, right? And he has played to the evangelicals and so on. He called them out. This guy call out Trump and the people that are supporting Trump, the Christians that are supporting Trump. But then on the other hand, when we really dig deep, we realize but this guy still supports pro-life. He's against abortion. He's also uh, oh against LGBTQ, right? Which is very problematic with him. So and he's also misogynist. Supports some misogyny.
And racist.
Yeah, yeah. Woman is the man is the head of the house, and the
Yeah,
woman have to be submissive
yeah,
to
yeah.
their
All that
husbands, etc. All that
hierarchy crap. Yes, indeed. Go ahead.
hierarchy crap.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, sir, I can applaud you on calling out Trump and the Christian nationalists who are trying to take over the country. But on the other hand, you are still problematic, sir. You're still problematic. You are against marginalized groups, all in the name of religion, all in the name of a God that you can't even show to exist, right? And in that case, you are also demonstrating here you are doing the same thing basically as the Christian nationalists who are against these same things that you are against. So all in the same boat, same hate speech, same hate, no different, right? And it is not really surprising because I find that Christians tend to say from one denomination say, oh, that other denomination is not Christian, and they play these sort of games. So he's calling out his the church that he used to belong to, the denomination, the Southern Baptist Convention, for sexual abuse, not handling sexual abuse cases the way that they should handle them. But then on the other hand, he is trying to say, oh, but the LGBTQ, there's a problem with them. There's a problem with, women need to know their place, basically, because that's why it is, that's what he's saying. So eh, I find he's kind of being hypocritical. What you say about that, John?
Well, yes, I agree. This is a bit a, a bit the pot calling the kettle black. Um, it's just the friendly atheist had a breakdown on Russell Moore that was rather enlightening. His only real gripe with Trump or MAGA appears to be that this whole thing about them calling out Jesus as weak. Um, Other than that, he kind of toes the line right down with the same crap that everybody else in that evangelical vein uses. And I'm part of at least two of those minorities. And I know that other people on this panel are part of two or more of those minorities that they don't like and want to just take us from being marginalized to not extant, which to me is a scary proposition given some of the idiots that they have following them. I just don't think at this point that we should entertain any applause for a man who just says, you can't talk about the guy in my Bible, but it's okay not to do what he says to do. It's just kind of like you said, it's just a big hypocritical mess. Their theology is so fractured and so convoluted and tied into such a big Gordian knot that eventually it's going to have to give. And they're just going to end up in a very bad place. And I don't want to see that because it usually ends up in violence, but we'll see what happens. And Infidel, what do you have to say on this?
Well, this subject more reminded me of a famous civil rights leader's comments after the assassination of JFK. He said that this was the chickens coming home to roost. I really thought that was a perfect answer to Russell Moore. This politicalization of the movement has been going on for over 50 years. They spent trillions of dollars on this. They wanted their vote, but it was just a ploy. The dog caught the bus again. They got ahead of themselves. He wasn't preaching turn the other cheek with his anti-LGBT rhetoric or his promoting subjugating women. Military and holy war rhetoric have been the norm forever. God's army, spiritual warfare, battling the devil, they all come to mind. Uh, I don't know why Moore is surprised when people actually expect a holy war when you're using those type of terminology. Now, what we are seeing is QAnon has co-opted Christianity. It borrows and it shares their themes. Preachers have recently been inciting violence against others for simply existing. I don't know what more could expect other than this. They make their enemies to appear not even human. He's just another closed-minded bigot upset that his God drivel isn't popular with the cool kids of the radicalized evangelicals. The Bible says that one reaps as they also shall sow. As they sow, they also shall reap. But that is a lie because we're going to all pay the price for this. We're going to all pay the price for their hate again. So, Cynthia, what do you think about this overall?
Well, when I was reading the NPR article, something that they quoted Russell Moore saying was fairly intriguing to me. He said, I think that the roots of the political problem really come down to disconnection, loneliness, sense of alienation. Even in churches that are still healthy and functioning, regular church going is not what it was a generation ago, in which the entire structure of the week was defined by the community. And I'm curious to know from you guys, do you agree with him, and why or why not? And Jonathan, I would like for you to start.
We had a pandemic. Everybody was stuck at home. They saw their religious services on the internet, or just didn't see them at all. They were isolated from their friends and family, um, unless they just happened to get caught with their family in the same household. Usually that's the case.
Hmm.
And that kind of loneliness, that kind of when you put um, any primate, but especially humans, in a non social context, we literally drive ourselves crazy. And so I hate to use that word, I shouldn't, but we drive ourselves over the edge. And the whole idea was that they were first, it started with the anti vaxxers, right? During the pandemic. Those morphed into things like, Moms for Liberty, other hate groups, because they wanted to feel part of something. And that drive for us to be part of another group is instinctual. It's buried in our DNA. It's got a lot of stuff that contributed to it. And I don't think there's a way for us to deal with the fact that these people found the wrong groups to be with. And they agree with them not because they necessarily believe what they're saying, but because they want to stay in the group and they want to feel like the group likes them and that they're there. This is just something you see time and time again in the bite model, of domination, of cults and things like that. They created a cult out of people who were desperate to have social interaction. And I'm not blaming the people who fell for it. I'm blaming the people who perpetrated it on them. So anyway, I would like to let Infidel weigh on this. I'm sure you have a few choice comments.
Well, I've got to say that I think what if I can translate from Moore, what he's saying is because we lost a little bit of our grip on you, you're not doing what we want you to do. That's what I heard there. Maybe my Google Translate doesn't work well on Moorism, but that's what I'm hearing. Because I mean, he doesn't mind the hate. I mean, Cynthia, I mean, you shouldn't even be talking. I mean, silence. Remember. But and then the truth is that every one of us here, we're all, we all fit this. We don't fit their bill. So something's wrong.
Well, infidel, we're not in church, so I can talk.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect you to do it then either. I would hope not. I'm counting on it. Seriously though, but this is all back to what I said of he's not part of the cool kids club anymore, and that's part of it. Phil, you hit it on the head with your golf clap of okay, I hate Trump. Yeah, you know what, you hate Trump because he's not doing something you want him to do, or he doesn't fit your preconceived notion of what you want him to be because you're happy with his message of hate. Hate is fine. It's big business. We can hate on all the vulnerable people available. So is he mad about, we're getting away from our Christian values? No. Well, you know what? I hope we are. I hope we are getting away from some of those
That'd be good.
But you know what? Don't blame society
Great.
on where the church is. We know where the church is and we know how they got there. They drove the bus. They just didn't realize that the other people were going to finally get in the driver's seat and be more unhinged than they possibly were. But I could rant about the weaknesses of an organization that only exists because, well, they wanted to defend slavery in the Civil War era. Let's not forget that Southern Baptist Church. But Phil,
Yeah.
what do you think on this
It-
awesome guy and his organization he used to belong to?
Basically, I agree. I agree with what y'all just said, and on top of that, right? In addition, uh, we also see he's talking about tribalism. He talks about tribalism and fractionalization outside in society, coming into the church, which already they had these communities, these close knit communities, and exclude everybody else. And tribalism and fractionalization has always been part of church. You
Amen.
have these. That's why we have how many denominations? 45,000. So he, as I said, he's a hypocrite, and he is trying to point fingers elsewhere. But remember what they say: when you point at someone, how many fingers pointing back? Yeah, right. So the and even within the a particular denomination, you also have tribalism, fractionalization, and because people have different types of interpretations, even though they have the church has um, a general base, but some persons in within church interpret those things differently. So that's always been the case. And yes, as Jonathan correctly said, because of the isolation during that period of time, it's kind of like they felt that they lose some grip on the church, because a lot of people stopped going to church after COVID, because they started to realize they were separated from the constant um, indoctrination from the preachers. And so they had time to sit back and think, and then realize, but look how some of these preachers are behaving. How they how they're getting on. They're telling people don't take the vaccine, and then some of them being made on a live, and people started to wake up. People started to wake up. So he's just complaining because they are losing. He and them are losing grip on people, and people are not drinking that holy Kool-Aid as they used to. Yeah,
There you go.
yeah, see,
That's it.
correct, see.
Yeah, they're not drinking the Kool-Aid, or they probably gonna get poisoned, and then next thing you know, they dead, which actually happened. But just to kind of like piggyback on what you said, Phil, about how a lot of these pastors were carrying on during COVID, and also how as you, Jonathan, and you, Infidel, pointed out about preachers losing their grip on their congregations. I remember, and I think, Phil, you can remember this too. There was a pastor, I want to say he was in Nigeria, who is a mega pastor. I don't know his name.
Yeah.
But I
Um,
remember him saying that he bought, I believe, two planes,
Jets. Yeah, two
two
planes.
jet, yeah, personal jets
Jets.
during COVID.
Yes.
And then the congregation was like, "Whoa, look at Jesus."
Hmm. Hmm.
And then he said after that, "I hope COVID never ends."
Hmm. Hmm.
And and I think that some of the people who were actually going to church would listen to some of this rhetoric, and hearing some of the pastors coming on to their different social medias and television programs, and saying things like this about don't take the vaccine, Jesus was going to heal you, blah 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 blah. I think that Jim Baker was selling some type of silver solution that's supposed to cure COVID. They even had like doctors who were also Christian nationalists that were co-signing on this particular rhetoric. One, Dr. Tenpenny, yeah, I think it was, thank you, our crew just mentioned, I'm going to try to read this. The colloidal
Colloidal.
silver.
Colloidal.
Colloidal,
Colloidals.
thank you.
Colloidal. Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
that what my panel just said, because obviously I have a problem reading. But regardless, he was made to stop because it was not something that was like backed up empirically. There was no peer reviews. It wasn't FDA approved. He was just saying stuff, right? And a lot of this particular stuff is dangerous. But regardless of that, I think that a lot of people was probably thinking what I was thinking. If your God is so damn good, then why over 1 million people in the United States alone died during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Mhm.
Yes.
When they
And
say he wishes it will last forever, it's going to. We're going to
yeah,
have to get a new vaccine every year.
every year, every year, kind of like the flu shot, you know.
Yep.
So I mean, so like when I hear Russell Moore saying that even churches that are still healthy and functioning regularly, church going is not what it was a generation ago. We just covered on this show a couple of times how church attendance is dwindling exponentially. And it's because of problematic preachers like this and not being able to prove a God exists empirically and not having any supernatural thing comporting to reality and realizing that we don't need any type of moral compass from a deity that we cannot prove exists. We can do it on our own. But one thing that you can do, dear viewer, on your own is look at more content if you click here.